Hey everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and this episode I did an episode like this a long time ago, but I was inspired by my good friend John T. Snow at Too Loud, Too Old Music to revisit this topic because number one, my old episode didn't get a lot of views because my channel was fairly new, although I miss my dark hair. It was probably 10 or 11 years old. It was an early video of mine. But anyway, this episode is going to go through my tour books that I've gathered over the years. Now, with one exception, these are all tours I was at and bought the tour book at the show. So I'm going to go in chronological order. That just seems to make the most sense to me. So the first one I have was actually given to me. I certainly wasn't at this show. I think that this was from Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1984. So this is Yes from the 90125 tour. You know, big comeback album for them. So, you know, they did a world tour. So that's the cover of 90125, as you can see here. And some other albums listed. And as my friend Kevin Mulvern pointed out in his Tormato book, there is no picture of Tormato here. They kind of wanted people to forget that album, even though I quite like it. But this front cover, was actually used on the live album that they put out in 1985 with a very, very similar title, 9012 Live, The Solos. Very confusing. But also, this is something different. Actually, there's a couple of these. I only need to show you one. This came with the tour book. Spark-O-Matic Car Sound presents Yes World Tour 84. Now, I guess that's a picture of them too, but and there's a write-up about the band there too. So this is the first time I've got a separate, like something that came with the tour book as a sponsor. So very unique. The rest of these I actually got at the shows in real time. Before we get started with that, I want to show you my ticket stubs. So I went through my ticket stubs, which are just up here on this wall, and talked about each one. They're not really in order, but a lot of the shows I talk about, I've got tour books for. All right, so do my best to zoom in on these. There's my very first ticket stub from my very first concert, Bon Jovi, February 13th, 1993. That is the side of the Bed of Roses cassette single that John Bon Jovi signed when I had the pleasure of meeting him. Saw them again that same year in Moncton, December 13th, 1993. Saw Kansas in 1994. Unfortunately, lost that ticket stub. There's my Van Halen ticket stub from August 6, 1995, Old Orchard Beach. It's a Cabo Wabo. I think that's a coaster that Frank from Channel 33 sent me. Thank you, Frank. Okay, so April Wine. I've seen April Wine 5 times. I've only got 2 ticket stubs left. There's one from 98. Saw them at Sweetwater's in Fredericton, which I don't even think exists anymore. And that's when I saw them at the Fredericton Playhouse, 2008. So we're kind of jumping around time-wise here. Saw Kiss twice on the reunion tour, August 3rd, 96 at what was then the Molson Center in Montreal. And again on the Psycho Circus tour in Portland, Maine. Cumberland County Civic Center, that is now called the Cross Insurance Center. AC/DC on the Black Ice tour, part of the Magnetic Hill Music Festival, along with the Answer and Anvil, August 6th. August 6th was a popular concert date. That's also when I saw Van Halen in 95. Classic Albums Live. Got a few of these on here. Rush 2112. That was a great show. Seen Alice Cooper a couple of times. There's a ticket stub from October 6, 2000 in Portland, Maine at the State Theater. Signed by Eric Singer. And I saw him again with Helix opening May 4th, 2006 at Harbor Station in Fredericton. Journey undertook a really extensive Canadian tour in 2015. Caught them in Moncton at the Old Coliseum, July 30th, 2015. Seen Honeymoon Suite and Helix several times. There's a couple of set lists. That's Honeymoon Suite from 2008, and that is Helix from 2009. There's another Helix set list from 2016. There's some more, let's see, some more things at the Fredericton Playhouse. Queen and Night at the Opera, classic albums live. A couple of times saw that show, different lineup. There's the Queen Extravaganza, Sarah and I saw in 2013. Okay, there's the first time Night at the Opera. That was with the late Phil Narrow on vocals, by the way. Queen Extravaganza again in 2018. There's my ticket stub from the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. There's Queen, It's a Kind of Magic. Great cover band from Australia. And so now we move over here. Saw Nazareth in 2010 in Woodstock. They sent me this signed photo. Very, very, very cool. This ticket stub from the Augusta Civic Center, August 29, 2000. Great bill. Poison were the headliner, but Cinderella, Dokken, and Slaughter were there too. There's Bret Michaels solo 2019 and the Party Gras Tour 2023, Guilford, New Hampshire, where I met and saw Night Ranger. Seen Loverboy a couple of times. There's the first time, August 27, 2016. Saw them again with Kim Mitchell in 2023. A lot of these have been documented since the channel's been on. Def Leppard 3 times. Slang Tour 96, Euphoria Tour in 2000, and saw them again with Tesla in 2019. Here's a couple more classic albums live shows. Led Zeppelin 4 and Houses of the Holy. There's one there. Classic albums live, Fleetwood Mac Rumors. And there's Rumors, the Ultimate Fleetwood Mac Tribute Show. Seen them a couple of times. Speaking of Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant. Wow, mind-blowing. That's all I got to say about that. Steve Vai, that was a pretty mind-blowing show too. 2023, there's the set list from the Steve Vai show. This innocuous looking thing, it never had any names on it. This was a 2-day rock festival at Magnetic Hill, among others. It was Heart, Foreigner, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Pat Benatar. That's Mick Jones' guitar pick. Seen Bryan Adams a couple of times in 2000 and 2019. Carl Dixon from Coney Hatch. That's a show that I didn't get to because look at the date. You can probably guess what happened. And, okay, so here is, okay, that's Foreigner. And they were with Whitesnake and Jason Bonham in Bangor, Maine. Here's another show that didn't happen. Not because of COVID, because of, I don't know. Anyway, Skid Row. Did see Carl Dixon in 2005, the Rock Garden Tour. That was great. And I think that's it for the ticket stubs. Oh, no, a few more down here. Hi, guys. A few more down here. There's Jeff Tate from Aura. Got to meet him. That was cool. And Gypsy, another Fleetwood Mac tribute. So now that you've seen the ticket stubs, let's see the shows from there that I actually got tour books from. Tour books are kind of a thing of the past, and I really miss them. Now, a lot of times the shows I get to these days are smaller venue shows, but I like tour books. I think they were a great souvenir, and, you know, maybe it was just they weren't selling, and probably a good tour book would cost $100 at least now, so I have no concept of it. It's been 6 years since no, 16 years. It's been 16 years since I've been to a show and bought a tour book. So my very first concert, Bon Jovi. So this was the Keep the Faith tour. They're calling it the I'll Sleep When I'm Dead tour in 1993. And I actually didn't buy this at the first concert I saw. As I talked about when I went through my ticket stubs, I saw them twice on the Keep the Faith tour. I saw them in Portland in February of 93, and then that December I saw them in Moncton. That's where I bought this. When I saw them in Portland, I bought a t-shirt, my very first concert tee. This is a really cool, you know, this is when I said, well, what's this? And it's a tour book. I'd never heard of it before. I thought, well, this is neat. Excellent souvenir. And, you know, I just miss this about, you know, it's quality merch, right? And there's a lot of work gone into this. Some great live and not non-live photos, and there's a write-up about what the band had been doing. Yeah, just it's really, really cool. Really good memento from a really good show. Both of those shows were good. So the next tour book I have to show you actually is an album they just announced there's going to be a 30th anniversary of it, as if to remind me that 3 decades haven't gone by. I feel it everywhere. The one and only time I got to see Van Halen on the Balance Tour in 1995 at Old Orchard Beach in Maine. Wonderful outdoor show, and You know, the only bad thing about this show was that a year later, this lineup was no more, at least for a long time. They were never quite the same anyway, but, you know, I was so excited to finally see Van Halen in concert, and I had to, you know, I bought a shirt and a tour book at that one. It wasn't even a question. I'm going to be talking about Night Ranger here in a bit, but I want to show you this. This is the staff section. Alan Fitzgerald, key tech. Yes, that is Fitz from Night Ranger, and formerly of Sammy's solo band and Montrose. But there you go. Fast forward a year, a very exciting and very successful tour, I might add. The Kiss reunion tour with the original four. Saw this show in Montreal and got this tour book. There are variants of this tour book. This is the one I bought in Montreal. And of course, this was a completely exciting show. You know, you bought the shirt. Actually, you know what? I was so excited that I bought 2 shirts. 2 shirts and this tour book. This is when Kisstory was still available. Yeah, that was a very, very memorable show. I think someone can correct me on this, but I think there's a variant of this that's silver and everything else is black. Maybe I got that wrong, but I know there's at least 2 different ones because they had 2 different legs of the tour. Then about a month later, saw another one of my favorite bands for the first time, and this is a really unique shape of a tour book. It's a square book. This is Def Leppard from the Slang Tour. I saw them in Moncton in September 1996. Sadly, that was an ill-attended show. The band sounded so good. I remember, you know, just being disappointed, but man, it just shows you what a lull there was in their popularity. Even though this album was a platinum album in Canada, I think in Montreal and like bigger centers like that, they probably did better at the box office, but they still put on a great show. There was you wouldn't know from watching the stage that they were feeling disappointed that it was such a small crowd. I also want to mention, you know, opening acts are funny. You just never know who you're going to see. And the opening act for this show is a band that I never hear anybody talking about anymore. They were called Tripping Daisy, big time alternative rock. They had a minor hit called I Got a Girl. I think that was the name of it. And I was like, you know, but they kind of won me over because their encore, they did Wasted by Def Leppard, and they did it really well, and it wasn't poking fun. Because a lot of these alternative bands were just pissing me right off because they were slamming all the bands that I loved, even though most of them grew up on these bands. So there was a certain amount of hypocrisy, and that bothered me even worse. But they did a really sincerely good job of Wasted. So I thought, okay, all right, I don't like this band still, but at least, okay. Anyway, so this is from the Slang Tour. It's a really weird layout. There's all the tour dates there. But one thing about it, it was easy to carry. I didn't have to worry, you know, it was a big tour book that I carried with me. Because I would usually always, when I first started going to shows, I'd get the merch first. Because I was always afraid something would run out. And sometimes that did happen. This is kind of weird. Because this tour spanned 96 into 97, they kind of put this weird, what do you even call that, right? It's like a 6 and a 7 together. Anyway. Next up, so some repeats here of bands that I've seen, but 1998, Kiss puts out Psycho Circus. I love the song Psycho Circus. It's one of my favorite Kiss songs ever. But anyway, this is the tour book from when I saw them in Portland, Maine. It's embossed, and you know, it follows the whole circus theme. And you know, of course, I was excited to see this tour as well. I remember thinking, you know, they weren't quite as tight as they were in Montreal. But then again, I saw clips from the reunion tour, I think on one of the Kisstory discs, probably the third one, and I remember thinking, boy, they were sloppier than I thought, which is to say Ace and Peter, unfortunately. But enjoyable, nonetheless. Does anybody have this? I've never known anybody that's actually bought Kisstory 2, the Toys, Games, Girls, Collector's Bible. I've never known anyone that's had this. Tell me. I know a few people that bought Kisstory. But the next thing I've got is from a show that I saw in January of 2000. And to this day, this guy still puts on an excellent show if he's coming near you. Bryan Adams. This was his 99 into 2000 tour. And he was promoting a best of called The Best of Me at the time. And on this tour, it was a very stripped down show because it was just three-piece. There's three guys on stage. So there was Mickey Curry on drums, Keith Scott on guitar, like his longtime bandmates, and Bryan on bass. And there'd be certain songs like ballads that Bryan would play acoustic guitar. But it was really good, and I don't remember noticing any lack of sound when, the songs that had piano or keyboards in them, they sounded good. It was a neat idea. And the other thing about it, they were all dressed in white, the instruments were white, and all of the amps were white, the drums. It was very striking on stage. Very enjoyable show. So, yeah, that's The Best of Me there, one of many compilations he put out. But, yeah, really, really, really good show. This wasn't the last time I saw Bryan Adams, but there were no tour books, I don't think, when I saw him again. The next month, I saw Def Leppard once again. This time was in Fredericton, and Joe Elliott unfortunately lost his voice. But this was on the Euphoria tour, and it was a little bit better attended than the Slang tour. So this is the tour book. Looks much like the album itself. All of these Ross Halfin photos from Joe had really, really short hair. They still put on a good show, even though Joe lost his voice, such as a testament to how good the rest of the band are at singing. But yeah, it was a shame, really, because so next was a major highlight for me. It was a bucket list band, and Matt and I went to Toronto to see this. Rush on the R30 tour. Now, a few interesting things about this. I could do a whole episode talking about this weekend, but without getting into it, I had to buy this tour book twice, so I'll just leave it at that. But RushCon 3 fan convention, the third annual fan convention, was being held. We stumbled into that late, but were treated very, very well. Just missed meeting Martin Popoff and Donna Halper, and I'm so pleased to say, not in person, but thanks to the advent of Zoom and social media, I've been able to meet and chat with both of those people. So that was pretty cool. But anyway, so this is the R30 tour book. I mean, Rush always excels at whatever they do. It's always high quality. But this was a through the years. So there's pictures of them through every aspect of their career. At the end, there's all the albums. Definitely one of my bucket list shows there. And finally, the last time I went to a show and bought a tour book was in 2009 when I saw AC/DC on the Black Ice tour. They sold this. I think this was the only thing I bought there at that, but they were fantastic. Best work trip I ever had. It was actually a work trip through my radio job, and I was very, very happy to. oh no! I gotta go see AC/DC. Get paid for it. What a shame. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, tour books. This is 2009. I haven't bought one since. I haven't, and I've never really explored the idea of looking for older ones. That's cool. Everybody collects something different, but it's just something that, I was given that Yes one. I thought that was kind of cool. What have you got out there for tour books? I'd love to see them, or just tell me about them. I also want to go through my own books at the end here, because I've got 5 of them now. I'm very proud to have 5 books out, and I appreciate everybody that's bought them. So I'll go from the beginning. Of course, we've got Unspooled, the one that started it all, an adventure in 8 tracks. Let's see. I think all the bands that I've talked about that I went to see, you'll find some mention of them here. Even if you just look at this in the inner sleeve here, a bunch of my 8 tracks here, I think you'll find all those bands. You can see Rush, and you can see Kiss, and Leonard Skinner, and Nazareth, and yeah. Next up, a band that I've never seen live, maybe someday, don't know. Y&T. Down for the Count, the Y&T album review, cover art by Hugh Syme. Still the only book on this band. I've only seen this band once, would love to see them again in this current lineup. Kansas, Let It Be Your Guide, the Kansas album review. Would love to see this guy in a solo show, but I did see him with Van Halen. Red on Black, the listener's guide to Sammy Hagar. And of course, my current book, a band that I had the pleasure of seeing a couple years ago, Night Ranger, Sing Me Away, the Night Ranger album review. All of these are available through Amazon. I'll post the link below. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was fun for me to dig out these tour books and look through them again. Again, I want to thank John T. Snow from Too Loud, Too Old Music. Follow John if you're not already, for giving me this idea. He's got a lot more tour books, so check out his episode on that too. I want to thank everybody for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Go see a show somewhere near you.